Imbolc is coming. Imbolc is coming. Yeah, there's two ways to say that, and neither is technically right or wrong, and you'll hear me using both of them. This is a very special holiday to people like me who have a devotion to Brigid because this is Brigid's holiday, and it's the beginning of spring. As I look out at all of the snow and know that there's more snow coming. Yeah, is coming. But of course, the height of the season is always in its middle, not at its beginning. It has to start somewhere. So we are going to talk today what Imbolc is, and then in a later episode, how to practice it. So let's talk about what Imbolc is as we walk together down creation's path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and, very apropos to this episode, priest of Brigid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the doctor.
And we are getting ready for Brigid's main holiday, which is celebrated on Imbolc. And I'm going to step back right now and just let you know there are a zillion different ways to calculate when Imbolc is, just as there are for all of the fire festivals. We are going to be going off of calendar dates because I no longer have the energy to walk around in the woods and find out when the first snow blossoms are starting to pop their heads up in the grasses. So it may be strange for some of us to be thinking about spring arriving at the 1st of February, but it actually does make a lot of sense. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're currently listening to us on. We do original Christopagan and Druid episodes 5 days a week, and got a lot of stuff planned, including a sequel to this episode that you don't want to miss. All right, let's just get into it. We don't know what Imbolc means. We really don't. The best guess is it means ewe's milk, festival of ewe's milk. This is the time that the sheep would be giving birth, that all would be going on. So there's a chance that is what it means. There are recorded many possible etymologies for it. The one thing that we can say for sure is that this is Brigid's feast day. And it makes sense. This is a festival that celebrates the family and the homestead in a way that the other 3 fire festivals don't. A lot of what is traditional to happen on this date involves the family, particularly the eldest daughter of the family, which I find really, really interesting that it's not the mother, but the eldest daughter. And most of the rituals are involving the family and bringing good fortune to the family. All the fire festivals, bonfires would be lit and animals would be walked between them for blessing purposes. It's a fire festival. Bonfires are lit. That's why they are called fire festivals. But this one really has a special place in people like because I, if you can't guess, have a very strong devotion to Brigid. I open every episode with the statement that I am a priest of Brigid, and that's not just flourish that I add to my name. During the last major solar eclipse to pass over the United States, I took my priesthood vows to Brigid and basically became a contract worker for her. I agreed to do certain things in exchange for our certain things. We set up a work relationship, shall we say. And we have worked together quite well ever since. Granted, we worked together before that. I just wanted to formalize our relationship. There's a lot of internal debate as to what the best way to discuss our relationship is. But for me, priest was actually the best term. I really felt my calling and duties to Brigid involved making sure that we were keeping the forge of creativity alive and going, that we were keeping the hearth fires strong and helping people in their found families and other families be warm and together and interconnected into that sacred well of healing that helps people, mind, body, and spirit become better and become whole. Not to mention all of the other work that goes along with it. Those were the 3 main avenues that I felt connected to. And this is something that we see very strongly connected, not just to Brigid, but with this holiday, that we are here to celebrate and to really welcome Brigid into the home. So we're going to be talking a lot more about the traditions that go along with Imbolc in another episode, because there are a lot of them. The only one that I'm going to mention here is get yourself a scarf, a piece of fabric special that you can dedicate to Brigid, because as part of this festival, it is believed that Brigid kind of wanders the countryside at night. And if you leave a cloth out tied to a tree, she will bless this and it will bring healing into your home. You bring it in when you're sick, you kind of cover yourself with it, that it brings the healing powers of Brigid into your home. If you haven't already gotten yourself one or do not know about this and are interested in participating, get thyself a scarf, a blanket, a towel, some stretch of fabric that you might want to use for this, and find yourself a tree to hang it from. If you don't have a tree, you can hang it from the railing of your balcony. If you're in an apartment, you can just put it outside the night before Imbolc so that she can bless it. Because this is the time where she is traveling around and we are really welcoming her into the home. Well, this isn't just an important for people like me who have a very specific devotion to Brigid, but to anyone who is practicing any form of Irish paganism or Irish spirituality, because as we know, the Tua are very interconnected. You can't work with one of the Tua without working with the others. My work is with and for Brigid, but that doesn't mean that I do not from time to time work with and for Angus or the Dagda or Lou or Oma or any of the others, because Tua travel together.
And this is one of the other neat things with Imbolc, is knowing that spring is beginning for those that are into gardening and mushrooms, all the lovely things that go in the cauldron to be cooked up into wonderful stews and stuff. Some of the Dagda's area of stuff. Now's the time to start that, to be working on the planning for this spring and summer. What do you want to start planting and grow and have harvest for? Because it's got to start somewhere, and it starts with that plan.
And this is the time to start making those plans.
Yeah, make those plans. And for some of the seedlings to start, if you're starting them inside and moving them out.
Well, one of the practices that I want to do this year is in the book To Walk a Pagan Path, recommends planting a 1 meter by 1 meter garden and recommends a lot of different things that you can plant in it. So that basically every 3 months, basically around every fire festival, you are reaping a harvest from this garden. This is something that I've thought about doing before, and it's something I would really like to do this year. And so that's part of the planning that we're going through, is where are we going to put this? Where should it be? How should we build it? And of course, when are we going to do this? Because I would love to say on Imbolc, I am going to be planting this garden, but looking at the current forecast of where they think we're going to be weather-wise, may have just gotten a bunch more snow by then. That's not ideal planting weather around here. So it really wouldn't be when I would be doing that. But it is the time to be thinking ahead and thinking forward of, what does this look like? What am I wanting to do? A lot of the work that I've done with Brigid, unlike a lot of the other spirits that I've worked with, and unlike any of my experiences with any of the other two, how methodical work with Brigid feels. And so I find it very appropriate that here at Imbolc are entering a time of planning, trying to figure out what it is we are going to be doing for the year to come. And hopefully you started that back at Alban Arthen when we talked about that. That is the best time when you're there in the bear cave, just nothing else to do because it's too cold to really be outside, to figure out what it is that you want to be doing in the year to come. There's a difference between thinking about and actually getting everything ready for those plans to go into practice. Also, this is really a season for family to get together. When we talk about some of the practices in the future episode, it really, we'll be talking about traditional practices that go back in history, but now might be an interesting time to be thinking, what practices do you want in your family, whether that is a found family or other kind of family? What spring traditions do you want to bring in? I know for me, and we talked about this before, This is the season where I'm excited that Wicked is going to be out on streaming or available to buy, because watching The Wizard of Oz was a spring tradition in my family. I don't know why we watched The Wizard of Oz every year, but we watched The Wizard of Oz every year in the spring. And so it has this connection to the season for me, and really has a very powerful connection to letting my all of my senses know this is spring. We're moving into this time period. I think it was just because it would happen to be on television of year for reasons beyond my ken, but it was something that really meant a lot to me. What what traditions do you want to bring in? What was the time to start looking at the grocery aisle, fresh fruit aisle, fresh vegetable aisle in your grocery store? If you have a farmer's market, if it's starting to open up, what early things are starting to come in? Because depending on where you are in the country, there are some fresh things that might be showing up. And I've noticed that when we lived in California, certain things were available. When we lived on the East Coast, certain things would start to be available. Things connect you, because more than anything else, Imbolc to me is a holiday about forging those connections between you and traditionally your livestock, but now I guess it would be our livelihood, and your family and your land and the community around you. This wasn't like the other festivals, which were much more communally celebrated. Most of the Imbolc traditions are centered in the home, the hearth. Which again makes perfect sense, because the hearth is the natural altar to Brigid that most people had, that everybody had back then. Really have hearths as much in our homes these days. So that may be our stove, or something else that is standing in for a hearth, because it needs to be that warm place of gathering. It doesn't necessarily have to be where you cook, though that could be a part of it. It could be your living room. I think in a lot of ways, even without a fireplace in them, the living room is kind of the new hearth room for a lot of people. And figuring out how you can those qualities of Brigid in, whether that's from the industriousness of the forge to the creativity of the poet, the healing and homeliness of the hearth fire, or the healing and wholesomeness of the sacred spring. Start thinking now about ways that you might want to bring those aspects into your life and into your home, and have those ready to get started on the first.
That's also one of the things I really find special about this time with Imbolc coming up. The general culture already has this push towards spring cleaning and thinking in that sense. If you take those energies that are already there from that and you just tune them a little bit differently, just focus them a little bit differently to how can you live in right relationship with the hearth, which is really the heart of your home and your home life, whatever that heart is. And if you don't know what it is, that's part of this time is going, okay, well, I need to answer that question. That might be why you might have struggles in the house, because you don't know where the hearth is. And it's, so focusing energy into knowing where the hearth is, and how to live in right relationship with it, how to live in right relationship with the family members of the household and the animals of the household. And as you pointed out, that the livestock is now kind of more of the livelihood. So it's also that time to think about how you live in right relationship with your livelihood, because many of us lose that focus there, and we don't live in right relationship with our work. As a recovering workaholic, I get attest to all the problems it can bring with not living in right relationship with our work and what we're doing with our work. And so it's that time of um, taking stock of that, of planning it. Take your work and walk it around the bonfire. So it
And
can get some blessings for the next year, you know.
and because this is a time for family, I find myself thinking a lot about our house spirit, not our house spirits. We're not talking about the elves or the kobolds or the brownies or whatever you call them in your tradition. I'm talking about the literal spirit of your house. If you're not familiar with this, Ivy Corvus over on YouTube did a wonderful series with a lot of other creators talking about this relationship that we have with the spirit of the house that we live in and how to cultivate that relationship and how to make sure that it is a beneficial one for both of you. Because, yes, lived in places where there was a tension between us and the spirit of the house, and it was never a comfortable place to live, no matter what we did or how we tried to negotiate it. And so, this might be an interesting time for us to expand our definition of family to think about, yes, our house spirits, those brownies, elves, what I think they're sometimes called alder folk that live in the house spirits. Sometime to think about the house spirit, kind of, that Uber mention, that overarching oversoul of the family, that spirit of the home itself. Because one of the things that I have noticed with some of my older relatives who had a very specific connection to the home that they grew up in, which no longer exists. It was torn down a long time ago to make way for a road to go through, but they each kept beams of wood from that house. And watching their interactions with that, you can see this connection that they still have to the spirit of that place, even though that place isn't there anymore. Because the spirit of the house isn't so much the spirit of the land underneath it, though sometimes they are one and the same, but not always. I have noticed in various apartment buildings that there is a spirit of the land, and each apartment seems to have its own spirit of place, its own genus loci in it. And this is an interesting time of year to be thinking about those spirits as well and how they play into your family, and whether or not maybe this is a time to do a special offering for that.
With the spirits of the house, this being spring, it's a wonderful time. The energies are aligned. If you don't already have that relationship, you can start that. Time for beginning it. And so it's another wonderful part of Imbolc, new life, new beginnings, new relationships, the beginning of a season. I'm one who tends to get all caught up and then have anxiety over trying to do all the things because I don't know, for some reason in my brain, I feel like I have to have it done now. Like I got 101 things, so they'll be done on the 1st of February. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be done the 1st of February. The 1st of February is the beginning of the season. They can be done and spread out throughout the whole season. That's just another thing to keep in mind when you're putting these plans together as we're in, coming to the conclusion of winter. Our planning time is coming to a conclusion, and we're making those plans for the next season. It's for the
And
whole season.
starting to put things into
Like,
action.
yeah, and putting things into action. So it doesn't have to be done all at once. It's like with Advent, it was absolutely wonderful this past year celebrating Advent because I didn't try to do all of Christmas stuff on day 1 of December or day 27 of November. I took almost 4 full weeks, and as I had time, as I had energy, I did some decorations. I did some of the different things celebrating that season of Christmas, getting ready for Christmas, and then had 12 days, basically after all the prep was done, then I had 12 days to enjoy it and celebrate it. And really, it was nice because I was able to actually savor the holiday rather than trying to sit and eat a banquet in an hour. That's the other great thing about these cycles. And then with Imbolc being spring, it's knowing, you don't have to eat all of spring on February 1st.
Because our mid-spring celebration, and then we're going to get Beelzebub, which is the end of spring and beginning of summer, where we're celebrating all of that of life, really
Yeah.
flooding into everything. I think this is the great power in what draws so many people into paganism and Christopaganism, just this connection. The modern world is very disconnected, and especially in the Irish and Celtic way of celebrating the year, we have the 4 solar holidays that connect very clearly to the sun and the sun's passage. Yes, those are very hard locked to certain seasons, whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, because when is the summer solstice? It really depends on which hemisphere you're in.
Yeah. And for our brethren in the Southern Hemisphere, there's a lot of wonderful episodes about harvest because you're entering the harvest season. So you can go back and listen to a lot of those We're talking about harvest and harvest time.
Because
Uh,
it's Lunasa in the Southern Hemisphere
so
at this time. And that's actually a matter of debate in some circles because the solar holidays really do connect you to that seasonality and connect you to nature in that way. The fire festivals are devotional festivals, the Tua, that they are connecting us to, Imbolc is the festival of Brigid. Biel is the festival of the Dagda, and Lunasa is obviously the festival of Lu, and is the festival of the Morrigan, and it is very connected to the energies and the spirits there. And so, if you are connecting to Brigid in this time, no matter which hemisphere you're in, perfectly all right. If you're connecting to Lu in this time of year and that kind of energy, then definitely this is your Lunasa. That is the time that you're in. But there's a difference between the devotional year and the year. And it's why I'm not a big fan of the phrase the wheel of the year. Laura O'Brien likes to talk about the wheels, the plural of the year. And I think that really does express the real way of connecting with all of this, that this, yes, is the beginning of spring, but to me, this isn't really a spring festival. This is a very devotional time period for me because of my connection to Brigid. Whereas Brian, who doesn't have as strong a connection to Brigid, is seeing this very strongly in the beginning of spring. And it's not that it isn't the beginning of spring, right?
yeah,
We have this different relationship with the holiday of our relationships with those in the Tua. And so that it is much more of a devotional. And so as we're getting ready to talk about in a future episode, the various things that you want to do, I'm just going to put some things that you may want to have in your shopping cart just to make sure you can have them available to you should you want to participate in any of the, because depending on where you live, it may take longer for you to get certain things. So we've already talked about getting yourself some fabric of some sort for bride's mantle, but this is also a time of year to make your Brigid's crosses. So you may want to find a way. What reeds are local to your area? What do you have any local rushes in your area that you could use for that? Or is that something you might need to bring? It is traditional sometimes to make a doll to represent Brigid. And I've been thinking, because corn dolls are such a tradition in this area, of maybe getting some corn husks and actually making a corn doll for Brigid this year, as opposed to some of the more traditional ones using traditional materials. These are the times to start thinking if you're going to be in the more arts and crafty side of things. Arts and crafts are you going to bring in? Because if there's one thing that I've learned over 30 years interacting and interfacing with pagan holidays, there is, in some people, not everyone, a very crafty instinct that comes in with these holidays. And so if you're thinking about any of that, start asking yourself, especially with Brigid's holidays, because Brigid to me is such a maker that she really does inspire a lot. And since we are going to be talking about the actual traditions in the not too distant future, we will be talking about very specific things that are traditional. Especially if you have a devotion to Brigid, what are we making this year? Because I've had Brigid inspire crochet projects. I've had Brigid inspire various other making creative projects, let's just say, over the years that I have worked with her. So maybe asking yourself, what am I going to be making this year? And what do I need to have? Because that urge will probably arise in more of us than we think. All right. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you would be ever so kind, I would love to know in the comments, how do you connect to Imbolc? Is this your first Imbolc? Have you been practicing it for years? How do you connect to this time season? We'll talk about favorite practices and stuff in the future episode. Right now, I just want to, for those who are new to this, give a sense of the breadth of practice that's out there for a holiday like this. Let me know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, they will not let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. But then go over to Create.com, click on chat, and leave the same comment there so that we will know and be able to get back to you about it. Thank you so much to everyone who has been engaging in the comments. Our comments have been very lively lately, And thank you so much for that. There's been some really good points in there. And if you're not looking at the comments, especially on YouTube, the YouTube comments more than any have really had a lot going on in them. So if you're wanting to have more community, check those out. While you're there over at Creations Pass, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, you might think about join. We offer a monthly and an annual membership. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am C. Dorset on both. And that just helps us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. And thank you to everybody who does that. You really do mean the world to us. If you don't have any money to give right now, or you're not sure that we're the people that you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that is completely all right. But if any of our episodes have helped you, or if you've really enjoyed them, maybe share them with somebody who you think would like them, because we really do this to try to get the message out. And hopefully you know some people that can benefit from the work that we're doing. That is, after all, why we're doing it. And as we're heading out, oh, blessed Brigid, of our hearts, warmth in our veins, help us to find the home, the family that we need in this time of year. Help those who are dealing with so much loss around the world through natural disaster and war to find those moments of peace where they can gather together in their families, find moments of wholeness and healing. Amen.
Amen.